Hello, race fans. Welcome to Short Track Guys podcast, brought to you by ShortTrackExclusives.com. I'm your host, Thomas Faddis, alongside two other short track guys and good friends of mine, Jim Pokrant, driver of the 07 Can'tQuitFishing.com sportsman, here locally at Five Flag Speedway in Pensacola, Florida, and Ted Baber of Ted Baber Video Productions, also here locally in Pensacola, Florida. Welcome, guys.
What's happening? Let's get this done. I'm having fun.
Get up with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going into episode 2 here, and we're catching up on 3 weeks' results here at Five Flag Speedway in their sportsman class, Jim. And you've had quite the success so far, and it looks like the week 3 racing went just as well. Tell us about it.
Well, not as successful as we'd like for it. We'd like to get some more W's, but we're podium top 3 every single race, which we're one of the fastest cars, so that's cool. And like I said, my crew works their butt off to get me there, and I got to thank them. But we started third, and I think we were running third, and I got dumped with 5 laps to go. We'll shout out to Daryl the third, number 19. He kind of got into us a little bit, but it was just a racing deal. Around I went and gathered it back up and drove back up to third. And when the race was over, I found out we were on 7 cylinders. So I'd say it was pretty successful. We had a fun night. It's like I said, I do this for fun. And, y'all need to come out to Five Flags and watch some racing. Go to your local short track.
Yeah, you'd say 7 cylinders. How did that happen?
Well, when you blow a header gasket, which is what happened to the car when I pulled up to line up for the race, the hot exhaust actually melted the plug wire onto the header. So it ended up burning out 1 cylinder, and we had to finish the race on 7. And to start, get spun out, go to the back, come back up to third. I think we got a pretty fast hot rod. Good handling car anyway.
Yeah, well, you got, a second and 2/3 now, and you're only 12 points back in the standings after 3 weeks. What's next? You talked last week about freshening the engine, the 602 crate that you guys are running, and then making some gear changes. How is that coming along?
Well, we ended up, we're still trying to get the funding together to get the motor freshened. We just don't have it right now. The gear change we decided not to do. I think we're pretty good. I think the problem I had last race was I had smaller rear tires, an inch to inch and a half smaller than what I normally run, and that affects your gear ratio. I was hitting we have a 6200 rev limiter in the car to keep us from turning the engine over 6200, and I was hitting it kind of early, so that tells me that we had a little too much gear, and the tires have a lot to do with that, the circumference of the tires. So, right now the 00's wearing us out. He's won all 3 races, and he's got a bounty on his head for this next race, which I sure would like to take that $500 and that $250. So we're going to shoot for that. We're going to go through the car, and we also had some shifter issues in this last race, but, when you're running a lot of stock parts, sometimes things happen, and the bolts backed out of my shifter, and we finished. We didn't tear anything up, and shout out to Brock Gintz, my teammate, for a decent finish, bringing his car home in one piece, brand new race car we built for him. So it's going to be interesting next week because somebody's going to come for that money, and I hope it's me.
Yeah, we before we got started, you and I were talking, and it's like Brock, your teammate you just mentioned, had a chance to get into you, but luckily you guys missed each other. That
was crazy. I spun, and I'm rolling down the track, and I happened to look over to my right, and here he comes. I thought, oh no, this is a brand new car, and we don't need to have to rebuild 2 race cars. And I stopped, and he got around me, so it was a little hairy there for a minute. And you kind of brought back memories of one night that you and me got into it and tore both cars to pieces.
Yeah, I do. I remember that vividly.
So, hard hit.
It was a hard hit, and it's just one of those things. And we moved on, and you're still with it, and I'm not. So
yeah, but you're still involved. We're doing this, and we've raced against each other quite a bit and had some fun, and that's the only reason I still race is because it's fun. It's a blast. If you're sitting in the grandstands and you want to build a race car, you need to do it. Do it now while you can. Come out there and have some fun with us. There's also a team right now that's renting sportsman cars, so look into that.
Right. Well, talk about the bounty. If it really came down to something that you would have to go through, what would it take for you to not only just get the win, which I guess you would claim the bounty. But I mean, if it came down to, well, let's just be real racers now. I mean, the last lap or last two or a green, white checker, whatever you want to call it. If it came to you and a 00, what would it take for you to get that bounty on you?
Well, I'm going to tell you, he's a fair racer. He's clean. I am too. But for $750, I'd have to use my front bumper if I had to. If he parked it going in the corner, I'd bump him. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't, and I'd expect the same from a lot of other drivers. But I've raced against Brandon a lot, and he's a clean driver, and he's a good driver. But I could use the money. So, I just hope that he's out there enough that I can't get to his bumper, because I'll wiggle him if I have to.
Right.
Friends are friends, racers are racers, but money is money.
Yeah.
Just face it.
Amen, Ted. Amen, Ted.
And Ted, you were out there Friday night, and from your perspective, from your angles, I mean, how is the racing out there?
It is really competitive. I mean, these cars are getting closer and closer together. The more they race, the tighter the things seem to get. And that's in all the classes, not just sportsmen, but pure stock and pro late and whatever classes out there. They all seem to be getting, you don't have as many, what somebody refers to as back markers as you used to have. So it's getting tighter as it goes along.
Yeah, and they've got a big Bandit Big Rig Series race coming up this weekend in between, I guess, the Friday nights. And they've been out here, I guess, the last couple of years, I guess.
I think once. They've been here one time.
That's their return.
But they put on a great show. I'm telling you, you want to see something cool, watch a big semi bail off into turn one at Five Flag Speedway at about 80 miles an hour. That's crazy.
They're kind of hard on the wall, but...
Yeah, I had one of them spin and hit the inside wall, and it actually broke a chunk out of the inside pit wall. But these guys put on a show, and I have to admit, their announcing group and their presentation is really, really good. It's good for the kids. Kids have a blast. They give out all kinds of stuff. The drivers actually have a time you can go down on the front stretch and meet the drivers, I believe, and it's usually a really good show. Last year was pretty awesome. These poor guys have had to cancel twice because of rain, and it looks like they're actually going to get it in this time.
Yeah, I think they weigh like 11,500 pounds or
something like that. And meet off in the corner at 80 miles an hour side by side. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And how many trucks usually show up? I mean, or had showed up?
Last year, I think they had 10 or 11, and that's a lot, for a big rig, And there's more of those being built, and what I'd love to see is them take one of those big rigs and put a local driver in it.
I think over in Mobile, Jonathan Langham got to get in.
He drove one, yeah, he did. But I think it'd be fun if if those teams would bring a truck and, do a drawing and maybe pick somebody like me or somebody just to drive, because I would do it. I'm not scared. I think the only thing I wouldn't drive around Five Flag Speedway, honestly, is a sprint car, because those boys
Lord.
Got big balls driving around there wide open.
Yeah, and they do not lift. And I don't even think they know what brakes are.
No,
But,
it's nuts. They run around there wide open. Lap after lap of just digging.
a couple of years ago, well, the last time, the time before, it was a 68-year-old versus a 14-year-old, and the guy in the 68 said he lost his brakes on the very first lap. Drove the entire race with no brakes.
That's big balls right there, son. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody coming down the front straightaway be pulling their arms down and having blow that horn on the way by.
A lot of kids don't even know what that means anymore. I remember when I was a kid riding in the car and you're on the interstate traveling somewhere with your parents, you'd reach up and pull your arm down to get them to blow the air horns for you. That was cool.
Yeah, well, you're gonna see Ricky Prophet, Mark Noble, Alan Bowles, Marshall Davis, Jonathan Linsby. You're gonna see these guys out there battling it out in these trucks, which is a real big special event that people really don't get to see around in this area. Are they going to go to Mobile or no? Mobile's later on.
I don't think they're on there.
No, I don't think they're on schedule. Mobile's only running 4 races this year. They ran their first one last Saturday night, and that's pretty cool to see that track back up and running. I just couldn't afford to go over there. I would love to. In 05, I'd run both racetracks, but you can't do it anymore on a small budget. It's just too expensive. And they've changed their tire rule and went to an 8-inch wheel and a different tire. So, that means I got to buy, 6 wheels and 6 tires, and I can't afford it. But it's good to see the track back open. They had a good, decent race. And they're also fixing up the grandstands over there, which is something that track is needed desperately.
Badly.
I mean, you get hurt in those grandstands, but I want to see it. Ain't no racetrack close. I'd love to see it thrive and survive.
It stings a little that I can't be over there and shoot it, but due to creational difficulties, I can't be there.
Yeah.
So,
Different promoters do different things, and it's these people are from Texas and they're trying something different, and kudos to them for trying it. If it works out, great. If it don't, well, they gave it a shot.
Yeah. All right. I think Mobile's going to be around for a long time with these the new owners and promoters coming in. They know what racing is all about. You can look at the Davidsons coming from Texas a lot over here in the Panhandle, and running a lot of the big races from coast to coast, really. So I would see Mobile developing into what Five Flags is coming to from what it was. I mean, they go hand in hand, really. Friday, Saturday night shows.
Oh, they used to have a class over there called Pure Stock that there was 45, 50 cars would show up to make a 20-car feature. They sometimes had to run a B and a C main to get all the cars in. I mean, that was crazy back in the day.
in the first years that I went over there in the sportsman class, they ran nose to tail, 2 wide, 10 deep for like 2/3 of the race before people started wearing stuff out. It was great racing.
Yeah.
And that's going to be Saturday, May the 8th.
Yes, it's coming up Saturday.
At Five Flag Speedway.
The trucks.
Yeah, it's a Bandit Big Rig Series. So anybody that's listening and has time to get out there, racing's at 7 o'clock. Kids under 8's free. You can go to banditseries.com and check more of that out. And
I'm going to be there.
I'm going to go watch for sure. I'll be in the grandstands for sure. I support our local racetracks. I try to go to the dirt races every once in a while too, but that's the big thing, man. Right now, I understand money wise things are tight, but a few bucks, get some grit in your face, watch some cars go around, have a good time, bring your kids, because we're losing kids' interest in local short track racing, and that's something we've got to rekindle.
Absolutely, we got to have the young people get interested and get involved.
They want to actually work on stuff and not stare at their phones. Get their hands dirty.
Get out there and...
Oh, you just don't want to get truck drivers on the interstate at 120 miles an hour either now because they saw the race Saturday night.
No, but I mean, I would love for kids to just learn mechanics because it's
science.
Yeah, it is, and it's mathematics,
it's physics.
People that don't believe that racing you have to learn math. One of my math teachers used to tell me, "Well, you're going to have to learn decimals because you got to learn gear ratios." And this is when I was in grade school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And my mother always used to tell my teachers, if you'll teach him to use racing lingo, he would sit and learn everything you teach him. But
it's something that it definitely has a lot of science involved in it. So you learn a lot of things. Like you say, you have a good time, you make friends. I can't tell you how many people I've gone out there and met.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look how many cup drivers that were nobodies when we met them. Eric Jones is one we were talking about earlier,
right.
That won a snowball derby, and now look at him. He's racing in cup. It's
I mean, he was just so giggly when he won it. He just couldn't believe it. And they reminded him that he beat Kyle Busch to do it. And then the story goes on that Kyle Busch was so irritated about getting beaten that
his wife told me either shut up about it or hire him.
And so he did.
And he won the truck championship.
And the rest is history.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I love about what we do in racing. Because, I mean, I know I'm done with, ever having a chance at making a big time. I'm out there because it's fun. It's what I love to do. I love hanging out in the shop, working on the cars, talking, and just carrying on. And that's part of the sport that people miss.
Right.
Come to the shop. I mean, I've got friends that I used to go to the shop and we'd sit there and have a few adult beverages and talk racing.
Frosty cold.
Yeah, until like 2 or 3 in the morning. Sometimes like, oh, dude, I got to go home. I got to work in the morning. But I mean,
well, you lose track of time because you're having so much fun. There's just nothing else to do. You just
and we miss the crowd interaction. Just like the kids coming down after the races.
Right.
I remember when I was a little kid, you'd go there and you'd buy a cheap checkered flag for like $1, and you'd have all the drivers sign it.
Right.
That was your prized possession, dude. You took that to school for the next 2 weeks. Look what I got, a checkered flag, this driver and that driver. And a lot of kids are like, like bored with it. I didn't care. I was like, I've got an autograph book that I've had since I was 9 years old, and I got all kinds of cool drivers in there, the Allisons and Neil Bonnet and guys like that. And it's super cool to show it to people. Look at this, man. Look at this name here. And
If you want them to understand what it's like to race a car, give them a golf tee and a bowling ball and say, balance that bowling ball on this golf tee as long as you can. I promise you, it's not as easy as it looks.
No, it's not.
Yeah, speaking of the kids, we talked about this last week. You were mentioning you were going to start kind of giving to the kids when you got to Victory Lane. Is it just the winner's trophy, or are you doing that for a podium finish?
Well, there's nothing wrong with a podium finish. I have, it's nice. I'd love the kids to come down, give them. Matter of fact, I've got a stack of third place trophies that I would love to give out to the kids. I want to autograph them, and I've got a young man named Bryson who races go-karts, has one of my trophies in his room, and I would love to give little kids something to remember us by, because a lot of teams don't. And hero cards. Eddie Ritchie, he's our track photographer, Turn 1 Photos. He does a great job with hero cards. Anytime we have a meet the drivers night,
Right,
you hand them out, give beads, give something to the kids. Get the kids out there, get them excited. These kids walk up and have a stack of those pictures, man. And they love. When I was a kid, that was the coolest thing in the world. Is have a picture of your favorite race car driver with his name on it. You can put it on your wall. My whole wall was covered in them. Like I had nothing but race car wallpaper, We need to get back to that.
Absolutely.
Well, we got Saturday night, the Big Rig Series, and then next Friday night you're going to go back at it and try to get that elusive win for the year. And
that $250 bounty.
And the $250, right?
By the way.
It's like double zeros.
He's got a target on his bumper. I ain't gonna lie. He better run like heck, because if we get to him, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's nothing personal. I think the world of Brandon, but that's $750 that would go in my back pocket. Go a long way for my race team with tires and whatnot. So
right.
I would expect somebody to use the chrome horn on me. You just better hang on and hang on to it.
Have you ever had a bounty on you?
No, I've never won that many races in a row. I've never won back-to-back races. As a matter of fact, I've got 11 feature wins and probably 20 heat races and numerous podium finishes, and I've never finished outside the top 5 in points, but like twice. So, and that's since 2005. So I've done pretty good, and it's like I said, it's not so much the wins, it's not so much the trophies, it's the friends. We wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't driving a race car. So, right. And I've always wanted to do a podcast, and this is super cool for me. I enjoy the heck out of this, and I hope everyone listening enjoys this. And hey, while I'm thinking about it, Thomas, go to your favorite podcast and give us a good rating. Help us move up the charts, because the more you help us, the more we can do. And we're going to get other drivers in here. We're going to do some remote stuff. We're going to work on this because we want this to grow, and we want this to exclusively short track racing. That's why we're short track guys. We want to do local short tracks. We might talk about some other stuff because Thomas has some great ideas. Eventually we're going to get it up on YouTube. We're going to do everything, but you guys can help us. So we would appreciate it.
Oh yeah, for sure. With you, Jim, being the driver, being active, with all the experience that you've had, and keep learning. Ted Baber with the video productions. We're
going to try to fold that in as well.
Yeah, we're going to put everything together. We're short track guys, and we're going to broaden out, not just locally, but we want to stretch out, which is going to come up here in just about 30 seconds with our next subject there with some late model racing and some history along the way that's being developed that we talked about earlier to get the format together. But yeah, we're listed on all the platforms, not completely all of them, about 14 or 15 of them now. We're still waiting on approval for about 4 or 5 other majors. But yeah, check it out. Short Track Guys on Spotify and Stitcher. We're coming up on Apple and Google, cool. TuneIn and Alexa and all that. So within a week, we'll be within all 18 major platforms. So awesome. Check it out. And we're going to have shorttrackexclusives.com is the website. We'll have merchandise with the logo. You guys, your support is just amazing. just in just a short period of time. And we really look to grow this, and we're really excited to have just a group here in the studio, and we look forward to growing.
Yep, we'd like to do some stuff at the Snowball Derby this year. I think that would be really cool to look forward to. And as a guy like me who's been going out there since I was 9 years old and been around all the short tracks and watched some of these guys develop and just make good friends. I mean, it's like I said, it's a great sport. It's a good sport to get your kids involved in. Get them a go-kart. Get them out there racing. Get them, because if they have a racing addiction, they ain't got no money to buy drugs. I can tell you that because I'm broke half the time because I love doing what I do. And it gives them something to do, something to think about. Keep them out of trouble. It did for me.
Know where they are every Friday or Saturday night.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
My mother used to take me to Five Flags and drop me off and drive back to, we lived across town from Five Flags Speedway. And I would call her if I couldn't get a ride home at 1 or 2 in the morning, and she would actually get back in her car and drive all the way back out there and pick me up. She'd gripe a little bit, but she knew I wasn't getting into trouble.
Right.
So, great sport. Great sport.
Gives you a focus.
That's it.
Well, we'll move into a little bit of what I'm referring to just a second ago with a big win of a big name that we mentioned last week.
Rich Bickle.
Rich Bickle, 5-time winner of the Snowball Derby.
Damn right.
At the Joe Shear Classic, the Joe Shear 200 in Madison International. In his farewell season, and his last race we mentioned last week would be the Snowball Derby, but what a big win for Rich Bickle.
That's awesome. He's a legend, short track legend. He won truck races for Darrell Waltrip, ran a lot of cup races, but man, short tracks, he was a pretty tough guy. And to win the Joe Shear race with the 36 on the side, and I always thought Joe Shear's 36 was one of the coolest numbers in racing history. The way it was designed, it was just always one of the coolest numbers to me personally. The guy was a great chassis guy, and for Rich Bickle to honor that man at his memorial race and to win it, dude, that's just storybook right there.
Yeah, I mean, he over Luke Fenhouse and Dalton Zier and John DeAngelis and Ty Majeski, all those guys up in Wisconsin who run the Northwest Tour up there. That's a huge win, and he becomes I believe, the only super late model driver to win in 5 decades.
I wouldn't doubt it. I would not doubt it. That man he's tough. I mean, and you ought to see him at 60 years old. He's got a set of guns on him like you wouldn't believe. He was at Snowball Derby a few years ago and got wrecked in the last chance race, which I couldn't believe. The kid, I can't think of his name right now, Carson Hocevar just ran him over. There's only 4 cars that are going to make it. The 4 cars were fast enough to drive away from the other bunch. And Hocevar wrecks him, and he gets out of that car just angry. And, I mean, he took his fire suit off, and that man got a set of arms on him like you wouldn't believe for a 60-year-old man. I wouldn't want to mess with him.
No.
Yeah, right.
I remember he was the only person I ever saw that backed down the pit wall to try to get back out during the track.
He couldn't get up there, so he backed all the way down pit lane and then pulled back out. He finished that last chance race with the sway bar all busted on his car, but
left front was up in the air about a foot.
Yeah.
That also have ties into last week's topic about youth and experience.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
You never underestimate the experience when you got like youth coming in and just like what was it? Kevin Swindell came in to Five Flags with the sprint cars.
Yep.
And Jim and I had the fortunate opportunity to be on pit row with Sammy Swindell.
One of my heroes.
Kevin went out and set a track record here at 14 years old or something?
Yep, something like that, yeah.
And I won't go any further than that, but he ended up setting a track record.
Did it in Mobile, too, the next night.
And it's just the youth, but the youth and the experience. Rich Bickle has done this. He's been doing it for forever.
Five Flags Speedway, he didn't make the Snowball Derby, but yet the man has won 5 of them, 2 times in a row, and then one other time in several makes of automobile. Just one of the best of the best. I mean, he come down and had a place figured out. And it was funny because I heard him talking one time. He didn't soak his tires when he qualified. And he'd qualify 8th or 9th. Everybody else had soaked tires. And usually about lap 50 is when he'd take the lead and just drive off into the sunset.
Everybody else's stuff was worn out by that time.
Well, your soaked tires go away, and his tires wouldn't go away. And there was one year he won in Richard Petty. He drove for Richard Petty's truck, and he was in Dodge, and he was leading, and with like 5 to go, they had a caution, and his motor was blowing up. It was blubbering and running like crap. And somehow he got out on that restart and won the race with an engine that was coming apart. Dude had a bunch of luck on his side too, but man, he was just a great race car driver. Fun to watch.
Doesn't have a little, hurt at all to have a little luck.
No.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. There was one time Mike Garvey and Freddie Query and Rich Bickle all got in a crash going into turn 3. Query caused it. Query is a great driver coach, another short track legend, but Query was rough. And both Bickle wrecked and Garvey wrecked. And Garvey comes down pit road, parks in his pit. As soon as they're done, he fires up. He says, I'm going to go get him. And he goes out on the racetrack, and Query goes by, and Garvey just goes, boom, knocks Query into the fence. And Bickle came back out, and he goes, hey, did Garvey get Query? He said, yeah. He goes, okay, that's why I came back out. Never mind. He just pulls down pit road and parks the car like, I was going to go out and wreck Query, but Garvey already did it for me, so he didn't have to,
Give me a favor.
He did him a favor, exactly. Speaking of race car drivers of old and guys that are heroes to a lot of people like me and Thomas and Ted, Gary Hot Shoe Ballou is one of our heroes, and that's my history thing for this week, if that's cool with you, Thomas.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he started racing in South Florida. Another short track legend named Buddy Griffin helped him build his first car. He won his first ever feature. Used to go sneak to the races with like Bobby and Donnie Allison. But what's amazing is down in South Florida, you had the Allisons. That's where Red Farmer came from. The Andersons. I mean, all these big names that raced, and he was one of them. And used to win late model races in the South, and in the winters he would go up north and run big block modifieds. And he won a ton of races, including the Syracuse 200. Built a legendary car called the Batmobile, which was at Five Flags a couple snowball derbies ago, which got to race one time. They built that car and they allowed it to run one time. It was so fast that the first practice that he ran it, the officials made him park it. They wouldn't let him practice anymore. And he won the race on 7 cylinders. That's how fast the car was. So he raced for guys in South Florida. He'd race up there. Then he started racing for himself. And, of course, won 2 snowball derbies, an all-pro championship. And he won a NASCAR race in Charlotte, in which Dale Earnhardt called him the most dirtiest driving SOB he's ever raced against.
That's something coming from Dale.
Yeah, coming from Dale Earnhardt, that's something else, ain't it? But he did. He won a sportsman race and had a good cup deal going until, well, he got caught smuggling marijuana from South America on boats. He bought him a boat. And he originally was going to do this to get himself out of debt. Well, 4 years later, the FBI is following him around. The DEA is following him around. And he won a bunch of races after that, still, doing that, but he got caught. He had a ride with the 28 car of Harry Ranier, the car that Davey Allison became famous in. The year Davey got that car for Rookie of the Year, Gary had a deal with Domino's Pizza to drive that car in the Cup Series. And can you imagine what he would have done? But they come and arrested him. Well, NASCAR wouldn't. He had to bail on that deal. But a lot of people don't know that he owned a third of Blue Max Racing that Rusty Wallace won the championship with, that Tim Richmond drove, and Raymond Beadle owned a third, and Reggie Jackson owned a third. I didn't know that either. Wow. But doing some research, I read his book. It's Hot Shoe. I can't think of the name of the book, but it's I recommend it. Just if you look it up, it's Gary Ballou. Hot Shoe, My Story. It's a really great book to read. It goes through his life and things that happened. And he got put in jail. He did about 4 years, and he got out. And then he went back because he got caught smuggling again. He said he didn't have any money, and he got on a boat and got busted a second time. He did some time out here in the Pensacola area at Softly Field. He could hear the race cars at Five Flag Speedway.
That would be irritating.
Yeah. He said he could hear them at night, and he said it was, he said one of his stints he did at Talladega, and I didn't know Talladega had a penitentiary. He said he was in solitary and he could hear the race cars laying on a floor in solitary confinement. That's insane.
That's torture.
It's a Hot Shoe, a checkered past, My Story. And they also did a documentary that you can look up and rent. It's, from what I hear, it's pretty good. I haven't seen it yet, but the guy he's now helping building asphalt late model teams up north. He worked with Mike Garvey recently here in Pensacola. And of course, he's famous 1/112. And a lot of people don't know that one of our local guys from Birmingham, who Grand American Race Cars, Augie Grill, is 1/112 because when Augie got his first go-kart was from Gary Ballou, and it was numbered 1/112 like Gary's car.
Wow.
So that's why Augie's 1/112. But Hot Shoe Ballou is one of the best that ever sat in a race car. He won north of 1,200 feature races. He's won the Syracuse 200 twice, Snowball Derby 2 times, a sportsman race. His first cup race was a 79 Daytona 500, which everybody knows is the famous Cale Yarborough, Donnie Allison wreck on the backstretch. And he was actually running in the top 5 before he blew another engine and ended up on fire in the infield. That was exciting. But he's one of the greatest, and I just hope that everybody researches some older drivers. Get online and look at some of these guys because they're heroes. These kids nowadays just ain't heroes. These old guys like Gary Ballou are heroes, and I've got to meet him several times. In fact, he comes to the Snowball Derby now, and I got to sit and talk to him. And when I race my car, I wear an autographed hat of his because it's just super cool. He's just a super cool guy. So
you get to realize what they have gone through to get where they are right now. The debt they've paid, the dues they've paid to be where they are. I mean, it's a situation where back then, if you didn't win a race, sometimes you didn't eat.
Yes. Well, and they also built their own race cars. There was nobody buying chassis. You went and bought a bunch of tubing and you laid it out on the floor, found a level spot in your floor, and you built a late model. Right. You know, and he built a lot of good cars, and he was one of the best at working the rules too. Because at Syracuse one time, because they run alcohol, they took 2 fuel cells and bolted them together so they didn't have to make a fuel stop. Well, they made the fuel stop mandatory, so when he come down, his crew was going to dump fuel in, and the fuel guy didn't win a Grammy because he didn't fake it good enough, and they made him sit for a lap. It cost him the win. And they used to run mercury with pumps. He said he had 60% left side weight without him in the car.
Whoa.
I mean, they used mercury. He said nowadays mercury will get you put in prison, and it will because it's a definite no-no.
Toxic chemicals.
Yes, and he was one of the first guys to really get off into aero in short track racing. And I mean, guys would come to New Smyrna for the World Series of Asphalt, and he'd have the big wing and the front end, and everybody would go back to their hotel that night and cut all their cars up and go buy sheet metal and start making body parts to try to be competitive. But that's Gary Hot Shoe Ballou. Like I said, read his book if you really want to know more about him. It's a really neat book. It's worth the $30 that he wants for it, and just enjoy it. It's just a great adventure.
Yeah, that's interesting news about the 112. I have an affiliation with the 112 in the sim world, but with Augie Grill and Gary Ballou, and there are a couple of others that are in the sim world that run the 112, and it's an iconic number for sure in the real world, and we appreciate that little.
Well, one more thing real quick. You know how he got 112? It wasn't a number he picked or anything, because his famous for the 112 and number 87, which he drove for Jerry Marandino down in South Florida. The 112 came from a car that he bought that had 112 already painted on it. And he was like, oh, so he kept the number. That's how he got that. And a female fan named him Hot Shoe. She said, you need a nickname. We're going to call you Hot Shoe Ballou. So that's how he got his name. And here's a little tidbit that's kind of funny. When he went, not funny, but when he went to prison, the day he had to check in was January the 12th, 1987. 1/112/87, the 2 most famous numbers he was famous for. He swears up and down the prosecutor did that on purpose.
Wow. Well, your next sportsman race is going to be on the 14th with the Outlaws, the Pro Trucks, and the Pure Stocks. I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
Keep up the hard work and your dedication and your spirit as far as racing goes, and go get that bounty and put that money in your pocket, put it in the car, and stay up there. Maybe you win 3 and get your first bounty this year.
I would love that. I want to get my trophy too. I love collecting trophies.
All right, gentlemen, that's going to bring us to a close. Jimmy, any other sponsors other than Can'tQuitFishing.com?
Well, Techmaster of Fort Walton Beach. He works on BMWs and Mini Coopers. Ted Baber Video Productions. Emerald Coast Remodeling and Trim. They come on board with us. And Gens Brothers Racing, because that's the shop I work out of.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, we get those guys on board and get them recognized, and it's a scratch your back world, and maybe get it going, and that's going to do it for this episode. And we look forward to getting together next week. And this is Short Track Guys podcast presented by Short Track Exclusives. We'll be bringing guests on periodically, kind of getting our feet wet here, but we're going to have some guests coming on, whether it's via phone or whether live here in the studio. But look forward to having you guys back next week, and good luck Friday night, Jim, and Ted, we'll see you next week too.
Well, I'll be here.
Thank you, and we'll talk to y'all next time.